Okay, now we've got Ielts listening part 4, and part 4 is always a part of our lecture. In listening part 4, there will be one person talking and there will be 10 questions, 31 to 40. In the beginning, they will give you 1 minute to read all the questions, and then audio will start non-stop from questions 31 to 40. Okay, so tracking the audio in part 4 is very important. Sometimes you are going to go behind the audio or ahead of the audio, so the words which are given, don't read everything in part 4. Just read the notes where there is the question, and where there is no question, underline one word, so that when they speak that word in the audio, you know audio is here. Let's see. Part 4, complete the notes below. Write one word only for each answer. Are we allowed to use number? No, it's only one word. Ocean biodiversity. Ocean, you know, sea. And biodiversity means the different type of creatures that are living there. There is a biodiversity, different creatures living. So this is all about ocean biodiversity. Let's see. Biodiversity hotspots. Okay, areas containing many different species. Underline the word species here. Without reading all the point, just underline the word species. Option B, important for locating targets for. Now underline locating targets for. For targets, they might use the word key areas. Targets or key areas. So targets for that they can use the word key areas for. Got it? Now I play the audio. Please listen and answer.
I've been looking at ocean biodiversity. That's the diversity of species that live in the world's oceans. About 20 years ago, biologists developed the idea of what they called biodiversity hotspots. These are the areas which have the greatest mixture of species. So one example is Madagascar. These hotspots are significant because they allow us to locate key areas for focusing efforts at conservation. Biologists.
Here, key areas focusing efforts at conservation, which we say conservation. So correct answer is conservation. Please listen again.
I've been looking at ocean biodiversity. That's the diversity of species that live in the world's oceans. About 20 years ago, biologists developed the idea of what they called biodiversity hotspots. These are the areas which have the greatest mixture of species. So one example is Madagascar. These hotspots are significant because they allow us to locate key areas for focusing efforts at conservation.
Key areas for focusing efforts at conservation. Important for locating targets for conservation. And for conservation, they pronounce S as sir, so it's conservation. Okay? CONSERVATION. Now, can you see Boris Worm 2005? And then can you see the word sharks? Underline the word sharks. When in the audio they say sharks, it means they have reached here. And right after that they say found that ocean hotspots were not always rich in. Now listen, were not always rich in means there was something which was not enough. Right? For example, for that they can use the word they did not have enough dash. They did not have enough dash means they were not always rich in. Okay, they were not always rich in. They had low level of something. They had little portion of something. So let's see what that is.
Then a Canadian biologist called Boris Worm did some research in 2005 on data on ocean species that he got from the fishing industry. Worm located 5 hotspots for large ocean predators, like sharks, and looked at what they had in common. The main thing he'd expected to find was that they had very high concentrations of food, but to his surprise, that was only true for 4 of the hotspots.
He'd expected very high concentration of food, but to his surprise, he found it at 2 or 4 of the hotspots. So rich in food. Exactly. He'd expected high concentration of food, but actually it wasn't true. So they were not always rich in food is the right answer. Listen again.
Then a Canadian biologist called Boris Worm did some research in 2005 on data on ocean species that he got from the fishing industry. Worm located 5 hotspots for large ocean predators, like sharks, and looked at what they had in common. The main thing he'd expected to find was that they had very high concentrations of food, but to his surprise, that was only true for 4 of the hotspots. The remaining hotspot was quite badly off in that regard.
The remaining hotspots, they were quite badly off in that regard, means they didn't have or they were not rich in food. Okay, question number 23. Had higher temperatures at the... Now, when you're talking about sea, so a part of sea where the temperature was high. It can be bottom of sea. It can be somewhere in the middle of the sea. It can be on the surface of the sea and all that. So for higher temperature, they might use the word high temperature, warmer, higher levels of temperature or anything like that. So the part of the sea which had higher temperature.
But what he did find was that in all cases, the water at the surface of the ocean had relatively high temperatures, even when it was cool at greater depths.
Water at the surface of the ocean had higher temperature. So answer is surface. Very good. Okay, question number 34. Had sufficient dash in water. Now it can be a mineral which is found in water, or it can be anything. Had sufficient dash in water.
However, this wasn't enough on its own, because he also found that the water needed to have enough oxygen in it. So these 2 factors seemed necessary to support the high...
Yeah, water needed to have enough oxygen. Needed to have enough oxygen means had sufficient oxygen. And you can write oxygen as a word, or O2 is also accepted, right? Okay, let's go on. Question number 35. Lisa Bellons, 2007, looked for hotspots for marine dash. Now, marine is another word for sea. So it's going to be a creature. She looked for hotspots. Hotspot is an area where you find these animals in abundance. So, Lisa Bellons looked for hotspot for marine dash. Now, it can be, for marine, they can use the word sea. For example, marine whales, marine sharks, marine turtles, marine something, okay? And for marine, they can use the word sea, ocean, or anything.
A couple of years later, in 2007, a researcher called Lisa Bellons, who was working in California, also started looking for ocean hotspots, but not for fish. What she was interested in was marine mammals, things like seals.
But she was interested in marine mammals like seals. Now, seal is one example. Seal cannot be the answer.
And she found 3 places in the...
Alright, answer is? How do you spell mammals? Double M. If you write mammal with single M, your right answer is going to be wrong. Okay.